Welcome to my humble abode. I am Yorkie the Talespinner, and this fills over coffee. Our morning show where we start the day together. A cup of coffee and narrative tale in the hope that we're welcoming a blessed day. Let's return to Suzerain and see how our reign begins. How our presidency begins. If I call it reign, you might think going back to the times of the monarchy. Right, let's see what's waiting for us. Read the report from Holsword, logistical issues. The Mayor of Holsword reports that the rising population and fast urban expansion has resulted in high levels of congestion in the city traffic. The logistics report underlines the increased traffic and slow transportation routes, the biggest problems of the capital. The Mayor also reports the absence of a well-designed, large land-based logistics centre where all transporters could come together is one of the greatest problems for domestic transporters because Holsword is a big metropolis. Transporters are scattered all over Holsword, having established such centres in 10 different districts. Have a look at the information we have on Holsword, shall we? The strong and defiant beating heart of Sordland at the centre of the city, the great city, is a capital park, which serves as a huge recreational area. Next to it, a tall and wide structure that exudes power from the architectural style is piercing through the clouds. It is a presidential palace that towers above all in Holsword and beyond. Across it is the Grand National Assembly, where the people's representatives gather to debate and pass bills. A brief walk down the centrum clearly shows ministries lined up, one after another. For example, the Supreme Court and the Ministry of Justice. These monumental buildings draw a lot of attention and hold a lot of power in politics. What is particularly interesting about Holsword is a unique social fabric. Bureaucrats, politicians, soldiers and students from all over the country frequent the streets. The people of Holsword, there you can smell politics in the air. And it is true. Hundreds of years ago, when St. Ruhek journeyed from Lochhaven to Holsword, he said power corrupts those who obtain it. Sadly, the capital is no exception. East side of the city is home to the best universities in the country, namely the Holsword State University, the King's Hill University, and the Imperial Markian University. They are known as the League of the Trident. However, the civil administration isn't their dominant entity. The Ministry of Defence and the gigantic Camp Strongarm, right beside it, houses the largest military contingent situated inside a city in the country. It consists of the elite 101st, 102nd and 103rd Presidential Guard Division, representing one part of the First Army. Interestingly, the military was once completely decentralised, which meant that no troops were allowed in the capital. That changed drastically with Colonel Saul. Still, people all over the nation come here with a dream of better life. The true reason behind the uniqueness of the capital is the way it reflects the country by displaying understanding and ignorance, wealth, poverty, power and weakness at the same time. Alright. So that's our report there. And we have the General Staff gathers. The General Staff convened right after the election to congratulate our victory. All branches of the Swordish Armed Forces were present in the meeting that took place at Camp Strongarm, with massive security measures. The Chief of the Armed Forces, Valken Kruger, made a public press statement, highlighting the increasing chances of military confrontation in Eastern Carpe, and the requested support to strengthen the military. I don't think we need those, but we should know about Valken. Valken Kruger is a Swordish 4-star general, the current Chief of the Swordish Armed Forces and the Chief of the Swordish General Staff. He previously served as the Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff of Army High Command and the Second Chief of Army Staff of the Swordish Army. He is the longest serving and second most decorated officer in Sordland. Kruger served the Imperial Army before 1923, holding positions such as Colonel and Major. In 1927, he opposed the General Ludrin's military coup, but later turned against him His supporters, later turned against him after Ludrin's mass executions in 1928, was among the group of officers who organised, under Colonel Sol, in the Swordish Civil War. In 1929, Kruger was appointed Brigadier General and a member of the Swordish General Staff. He became famed for his military victory in 1933 along the Welland border, where his smaller brigade destroyed an entire rebel army in the Battle of Suzerain. He was later awarded with the White Star by Tarquin Sol, the highest medal that can be bestowed upon an individual by the Swordish Armed Forces. Falcon was one of the key supporters of Tarquin Sol during the 30s and 40s. He became the Chief of Armed Forces in 1945, becoming the oldest person in that title. Right. We have a briefing on the current political situation. Peter Vecturn arrived a couple of minutes early and sat across from me. He was struggling to hold back his smile. We did it, Anton. We won. Finally, all those years and our noses, the grindstone paid off. Peter's eyes sparkled. The strain of the past months had put a damper on his usual rakish charm, but today he was looking and acting more like his old self. He loosened his tie and undid the top 2 buttons of his shirt. Enjoying the new secretary I picked out for you? Thought you'd appreciate her gorgeous set of talents. Peter, I'm a married man. It's a shame the rest of your staff aren't as easy on the eyes. He gestured to the slight paunch that protruded over his waistband. But hey, back in university, would you ever imagine we would be sitting here in the Maroon Palace? We have to celebrate the great victory. Celebrate then? No. We'll celebrate at the inaugural ball. Just hang in there until the evening. Looking forward to it. Evelyn hopes to congratulate you in person there. I'm sure the kids would love to see their Uncle Peter for the first time since as the Vice President. That's good to hear. It's crazy how fast the two have grown up. You are a good father. Peter had a wistful look in his eyes that he and Evelyn had never been able to have the kids of their own. During our campaign, the opposition had floated the rumour that he'd fathered illegitimate children during his wilder years, but it's never been substantiated. The door swung open and Lucien Galan, my chief strategist, walked in. He was a compact man with sharp bird-like features. After briefly surveying the room from wall to wall, he sat down, poured a glass of water, and opened his briefcase in a series of quick, graceful movements. Let's see what we know about Lucien, shall we? Current chief strategist to the President of Sordland, he is a member of the United Sordland Party since 1937, and held various important positions throughout his political career. He worked as a lawyer and CSO at various companies before joining politics as a legal advisor to members of the Assembly. He was chosen as a spokesperson of the United Sordland National Committee prior to serving as an advisor to the late Interior Minister during Tarquin Sol's last term of president. Lucien is well respected as a successful strategist, especially for his accomplishments in the recent election. He's one of the most experienced members of the cabinet. Although he is not a famed public figure, he is regarded by many to be an expert on law and media. His quick rise in politics is also bringing more attention to him than before. He was one of the first supporters of the Anton Reigns candidacy in 1953 and credited as the strategist of the election campaign. He eventually became the chief strategist of the president after the elections. Important to keep him on side, though. Gentlemen, the tall case clock in the room struck 3 o'clock. Damn, you're exactly on time. Hello, Peter. Lucien then turned towards me. He lightly bowed his head. Glad to see you, Lucien. It's a privilege to be here, sir. Lucien spoke in soft, clipped tones that immediately drew your attention towards what he had to say. Peter and I waited for him to proceed. Let's start by evaluating our current situation. The majority of the Swordish people demand change. They are more concerned about the economy than the constitution, but they blame the system for their problems. Franz Richter, leader of the Reformists, believes that the true change can only be accomplished by transferring some of our powers to the Assembly. I will move into the details of their demand shortly. That doesn't sound like something I wish to do. Let's see how powerful Franz is, shall we? See what we know. Franz Richter is a Swedish politician, businessman, and the leader of the People Reform and Justice Party. He's also the major shareholder of the construction company Taurus Holding. Before his political career, he studied economics in Lockhaven Business School and worked for the Watchtower of Human Rights in Arcasia. After his return to Sordland in 1924, he formed a company that imported machine parts from Arcasia and made several investments into services and industrial companies. I hope you can't hear the AC, it's rather screaming at the moment. He helped open research and development departments in these companies and promoted innovation in Taurus Holding. He acquired his majority shares. He was also known as a notable human rights advocate in Sordland before he joined the PFJP in 1932. He was famed due to his strong opposition against Tarquin Sol after his military coup, and was elected as the leader of PFJP in 1949. He promoted economic liberalism throughout his first years. During the 1930s, French supported the opposition against the majority government of the USP with little gain. He was a strong critic of Tarquin Sol's policies, labelling Sol a dictator, which led to a state investigation on him. He started advocating social democracy and campaigning for reform of the democracy of Sordland in the 1940s, which led to a huge rise in PFJP votes. In 1949, he won 30% of the vote, barely losing the election, which also contributed to a crisis within the governing party. He is sometimes credited as the real winner of the 49 elections. This was followed by the resignation of Tarquin Sol in the same year, and a strong change within the USP. This one we're going to have to watch seriously. He's rather opposed to us. After the election of Waldolf Fons, Friends kept his stance against government and once infamously called him a puppet of the deep state, criticising him for not upholding his promises for change. Although he was a strong opponent, he supported his privatisation policies. Franz Richter remains the leader of the opposition against the government in Sordland. I wonder if we can get rid of him somehow. If we lose power, we won't be able to execute the changes we need to make for the good of the country. It may create issues for us, yes. However, with the reformists gaining more popularity, we may not be in a position to stand against them. Mr. Richter managed to persuade many members of the Assembly to give their support for drafting a new constitution. Reformist politicians are quickly increasing in number. While the reformist wing inside our party is still a minority, they could have a tripartisan majority in the Assembly, especially if they unite under Franz Richter. Mr. Richter, no, he's not going to be an ally. The USP reformers aren't wrong that we need to change. We should be in charge. We can't let the PFJP leadership take the spotlight on this. The reformists' demands are clear. They want to limit the President's veto powers, ensure that the Supreme Court is independent, and take away the Court's right to vote on constitutional amendments. We will shape our own future. I agree, sir. The old guard, says Lucien Gallard, will do its best to preserve the Constitution. Chief Justice Hawker and his allied judges have a great influence over the Supreme Court, which will be tough to break. The Court also has the final say over constitutional legislation. Without their approval, we cannot even change it. I don't know if we can take away the power of the Supreme Court just yet. We need to maintain our power. The risks are rather high. We need to work with the Supreme Court one way or another, said Peter. True, said Lucian, but we can't let the old guard manipulate us and then backstab us, like they did with Alfonso. We can't underestimate this situation. We can figure it out, said Peter. Our party still holds 130 out of 250 seats in the Assembly. We've got the power. However, to reform the Constitution, we must have a 2/3 majority in the Grand National Assembly, which is 166 votes, and a simple majority in the Supreme Council, that equates to 6 votes. After we have settled on how to proceed, we will need to talk with our party figures. Our first goal must be to get the 150 signatures needed to start the process. Following the green light from the USP, we will reach out to the other party leaders to see if they would back our draft. The last step is to convince the justices of the court. The entire process will take a long time, but we must start working with the Reform Committee to evaluate the possibilities for a new constitution as soon as possible. Work with the old guard to protect our existing extensive powers, or... I like number 2, but I think that might be overreaching. How? You know the public wants us to enact extensive reforms, and how do we know if the old guard would support you? Lucian raised an eyebrow. If we go against the demands of the people, the reformists will be furious. It could backfire. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to surrender to the whims of the people. We can handle it just like the previous governments did. It will be a dangerous path to follow, Peter shook his head. Why would you want to work with the old guard? I need to maintain my powers. Only a strong administration can make Sordland great. That is true, but if we don't evolve, we might become part of the problem. You're talking about going against the reformists and public opinion all at once. Mr. Vice President has a point. You might be right. We'll think about it. I don't think you should take the risk, Mr. President. What is your suggestion then? How can we come out of this in the best shape? According to the initial draft we made with the reformists, there are 2 changes of the Constitution that are not open for their discussion. Lucian opens his dossier. First, the Supreme Court will no longer vote on constitutional amendments. Second, the President's absolute veto will be taken away. This can be replaced with a limited veto by fixing the current loopholes. I don't like giving up my veto. Don't mind the court losing some power. But I've got the option of not talking about either, or including both. That's rather a trap. Still, if they're saying they want both of those or no discussion, then it is literally one or the other. Rather not include either of these points. That will not be accepted by the reformists. A draft has been created with the advice of both our party and the PFJP members. Keeping your absolute veto over legislation but taking away the Supreme Court's influence over the Assembly would make it look like a power grab. Ah, yes, this is true. The reformists are pretty loud about their thoughts on the presidential powers, Anton. You know, they think this power position breeds dictators. Alright, let's address their demands. As you wish, we will move forward on that, Lucian nodded. We'll make a reform committee together with all parties and start reaching out to all the stakeholders in the Assembly and the court for a new constitution. By later in the year, we should have an idea of the reform contents and what the other parties want. Lucian nods. Another important point. We must be aware of the Lutterberg group. The oligarchs convene under this organisation to influence economic policies. Conrad led it for a long time before falling ill. The new leader is Mr. Walter Tusk. According to reports, some members of the National Business Council are in their pockets. Tusk and the group will surely try to bribe us in exchange for special economic protection. See, that's another power unit, and we could work with them. And I want to work with them anyway. It's always easy for the administration to have business support. As far as I know, Mikhail Koronti has some strong ties to this group. His influence could definitely be an asset for us. I'm sure he'll want something in return. I'm aware of Mr. Koronti's wide network that could come in handy. We just need to be careful with him. He looks like the lesser evil, but it could very quickly turn out to be the other way around. We need to tread carefully on all sides with all power players to survive our term. I need to underline the seriousness of the situation. The military and the general staff are a powerful element of the state, and as history tells us, a dangerous one too. We do have some room to make structural changes by reducing their budget. No, we want a strong military, but it is quite limited. With the Rumberg threat on the horizon, we can't reduce our defence spending and anger the general staff. We can't reduce our defence spending anyway. We absolutely need a strong military. I would advise the same. The budget should be maintained, and we should refrain from confronting the military too directly. Defence Minister Yasef Lancier is more loyal to us compared to General Kruger, a fact that obviously can change with our actions. Either way, I see a potential rift between the two, as they're clearly of different minds. If we act strongly against the military, both of these guys will unite against us. I agree with Lucien. We need to tread carefully here. Lucien looked at his watch. Well then, gentlemen, precisely 30 minutes. This concludes our political briefing for today. Our next meeting will be about the media strategy. Talk to you soon, sir. I will keep in touch. See you both at the next meeting. Lucien and Peter bid farewells. And we will end with a public report from... we'll end with a public report from Holsword. People's views on the need for democratic reforms of the government structure has changed over the last decade. Reformist propaganda from the leader of the People's Freedom and Justice Party, French Richter, have resulted in a massive increase in the demands for democratic reforms. It's estimated that currently 55% of the population supports the reformist ideas. It's going to be difficult to maintain the power we need in this environment, I believe. Business is definitely a powerful thing to ally with, as is the military. And the media network, well, as media grows and people become more aware, I am certain that more and more impetus will be given to the statements politicians make within the media. These are all things to consider. How best to position ourselves so as not to lose power, but to increase power. Because as you know, power held within a small group, applied appropriately, is strength.